Everyone has hidden potential in their brain, but the question is where? It's actually in part of the brain called the cerebellum. It's at the back of the brain and it creates skills to make everything we do easy and automatic. Learning to walk, read, write, ride a bike, drive a car, make friends, or even play sport. Because if there's things we can't do well, it's because the cerebellum hasn't yet created a program or skill for it. And if we start to learn something and can sort of do it, but not do it well yet, the cerebellum hasn't properly finished the skill. And when we're a natural at something, then the cerebellum has finished its job properly. It's now fully automatic and we don't have to think about it. Some people, however, are never a natural at reading, whilst others find it effortless. The cerebellum is the reason. It's the master junction box that links the brain and our bodies with special circuits we call skills. And if we don't develop certain skills, it can cause learning difficulties. Well, research published by leading universities in scientific journals have shown us how to make the cerebellum much better at creating the skills we need. Let's see how. When animals are born, they start walking and feeding within minutes, and they're soon running about because they're born with the skills that human babies don't have. Animals at birth have a well-developed cerebellum with lots of skills or programs already finished. And in humans, the cerebellum isn't developed. Babies can't walk or talk or do hardly anything. It's a year old before a baby starts to walk even clumsily because the skill for walking is only partly finished, still has lots of flaws in it, and it's a while before the cerebellum's completely made the skill of walking something that he or she can do confidently and safely. At the same time, it's also developing another skill for speaking and another skill to recognize when mum is happy and when she's not happy with me, and thousands of other skills to make all the things we do easy. One of these is the skill for controlling your eyes so you can read and write. However, in most people, the cerebellum leaves a few skills unfinished, and sometimes they're important ones like for reading. So this would be a great one to sort out. Now the question is, can we force the cerebellum to finish off those jobs properly? Good question. Well, this is how it can happen. Have you noticed how children are happy on fairground rides when they're jumping and moving around? Well, that's because the brain works best when there's lots of movement. Movement excites the cerebellum and powers it up, gets it ready to learn by creating plasticity. But you say, learn what exactly? Well, it's got to be something it doesn't already know, so it's a challenge. The secret we've discovered to achieving this is by combining movement and a challenging exercise, because when you do, the brain gets cleverer, the cerebellum gets stronger and better at making new skills, and even better at finishing off those skills it didn't finish properly before. Well, you know, babies learn fast when they're moving around, when they're crawling, when they're priming their cerebellum, when they're trying to do new things, taking on challenges, and they're developing naturally. But if you want to do the same when you're not a baby anymore, and you aren't crawling and jumping, so you're not challenging your brain, your development slows right down. And if the cerebellum hasn't already completed the skills you need to read and write, then you're stuck. You've got to find a way to kickstart the cerebellum so that they get finished off. Well, here's how we do that. We use special exercises chosen for your brain to stimulate the balance and challenge the cerebellum at the same time. Scans of the brain show that when you do this, it increases the blood flow in the cerebellum and the number of brain cells, so your grey matter gets more dense. The scientific journal Nature says combining those exercises multiplies stem cells in the cerebellum. They're the natural building blocks in the brain's most important junction box. And after a few weeks, those stem cells become new connections. But when the brain learns how to do an exercise easily, it's no longer challenged and your development stops again. So here's another secret in the program. Every day we carefully adjust the exercises to keep the challenge and the development going forward at the optimum speed. Because a 7-year-old child needs a very different program to a 27-year-old elite athlete or an 87-year-old lady, so every program is created to suit every person and their brain. How long does this program take, you ask? Well, for most people it's just 10 minutes twice a day for some time up to a year. And then you ask, but do the results last? Well, think back. When you learned to ride a bike, the cerebellum was creating that skill. And you can actually stop using your bike for years, but when you ride it again, the skill is still there because the cerebellum creates lasting connections to make those skills. So yes, the results are lasting. And if you've got some skills you'd like to improve, you now know what you can do naturally and reveal your hidden potential.